following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl, Hentz, and Dan Rylance here, and very pleased to, on this episode, be continuing our discussions with candidates in the spring primary. This time around, we're joined in this half hour by Steve Herman, who's running for the Oshkosh Common Council. In the second half of the show, we'll be joined by John Jorgensen, who is running for Branch 5 in the Winnebago County Circuit Court seat, so, or race rather. So anyway, thanks for being here.
Yeah,
thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We always start out, and it's especially important for candidates like yourself who haven't run for office before, by asking folks to just, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for the position you're running for.
Sure. First off, I'm Steve Herman. I'm a retired sheriff's deputy with the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office. I just retired in December after a 30-year career. The last 15 years at the Sheriff's Office, I was the Crime Prevention and Community Programs Coordinator. And that gave me a lot of experience. I was president of the State Crime Prevention Practitioners Association, which is a statewide network of crime prevention and community policing officers. I was appointed by the governor, Governor Doyle, to be on the Wisconsin Citizen Corps Council when it was first formed. And I served 4 years on that before I stepped down close to when I retired. And I was also president of the State Triad Association, which is a crime prevention network targeting senior citizens. And did a lot of collaborations throughout the state, was on a lot of conference panels, and I'm a consultant with Fox Valley Tech Criminal Justice Center for Innovation. So I think one of the reasons I'm running is because I want to be different. I'm not a career politician. This is my first attempt at running at public office, but I think I can bring some common sense, fresh ideas, collaboration. My background in the last 15 years at the Sheriff's Office was getting organizations to work together. A lot of different events, Aurora to Affinity to Theta Clark at expos and those types of things, getting other law enforcement agencies involved and just doing things differently than we've done in the past. And I was also asked by several people in the community to give it a look and give it a shot. So
what do you think so far?
So far, from the people I've talked to, they're all positive. They think that I can bring some common sense to the council. I can bring some fresh ideas. And maybe we can do some things differently here in the city. I've lived in Oshkosh my whole life. I was born and raised here. My wife is from Oshkosh. My kids graduated from UW Oshkosh just recently, and so I've been here.
Considering your background, this is, I guess, a semi-funny. You're not running on crime prevention for the Common Council, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But I will say that I'm very supportive of the programs that our police department has done. Their community policing initiatives, I think, are very positive. I think that's been a good focus in the city, and it shows our crime rates are down.
Yeah.
Who do you most identify with on the council, Steve?
I guess I would say, Burke Tower a little bit. I think Burke is very, he's thinks very, very much before he speaks. He doesn't kind of shoot from the hip. He does his research. He does his homework. I think Jess King is another one. I think that does a lot of that. I'm a little disappointed in a couple of the council members at some of the things, they kind of shoot from the hip, kind of like, and that's hard to do and easy to do in a sense. I mean, when you get frustrated or you get upset, you say things, sometimes you think, oh man, I shouldn't have really said that. And so sometimes that can be very difficult. And it gets emotional. I mean, I was involved in some programming where it was very personal to the people involved, and you sometimes say things and you think back after you say them, oh, I shouldn't have really said that.
Yeah.
So
Did you listen to Burke Tower's comment at the last meeting on the council member statements at the end of the meeting?
No, I did not.
It was a long meeting, but basically he called for more civility among council members. I think you were kind of alluding to that.
Yeah, I just think that we've gotten away from what the city council's about. They're more like a board of directors. I believe we've hired a very good city manager. I think Mark Roloff has done a good job in the year he's been here. I think he knows what he's doing. And I think the council needs to get back to what the role of the council is, which is a policy-making board. They are designed to give direction to the city manager, and then the city manager is the administrator. He does the day-to-day running of the city. And I think right now there's several council members that feel that they need to be in charge, and that's not their role.
Well, it's funny you should mention the words policymaking because that's exactly what Jess King said at Tuesday night's meeting when Mayor Paul Esslinger was essentially trying to mediate a lawsuit between two parties when that lawsuit and the issues surrounding it very clearly, according to the city attorney, were not the issue that the council was supposed to be considering. And yet here Esslinger was trying to find a way to mediate this whole thing and essentially make the lawsuit go away. Right. And Jess King and Burke Tower both said, this is not our job, let the courts handle that, and we're supposed to be making policy.
Right, and that's correct. Again, we hire quality people in the city. We have city managers, city attorney. We'll be hiring new planning and zoning personnel and other people. That's their job. That's not the role of the city council to be doing those types of things. I'm not an expert in those things. That's why we have an attorney. Even if our attorney couldn't be the one to settle that, then we would hire an attorney that specializes in that field. So it's not the role of the council. No.
Okay, go ahead.
I walk regularly at Menominee Park.
Okay.
And believe it is a great gym in this city. What do you think should be legitimate and not legitimate uses of Menominee Park?
Well, I think it's set up very nicely. I mean,
Okay.
we have tennis courts on one end of the park. We have the playgrounds on the other end of the park. I think it needs to be a multi-use park with the zoo.
Okay.
We have the boat launches and the lagoon with the activities in there. And we have the bike paths, walking paths in there. So it's a multi-use. So it's a park that's open to all users.
Okay.
And
I'm hunting for dogs.
well, you asked that question, and there'll never be a right answer to that.
Okay.
But I do think that advisory board, with all the parks we have, I mean, we have, I don't even know the
Lots
number,
of
15,
parks.
16 parks or more in Oshkosh. Maybe the route to look at that is maybe designate a park in each side of town that is open to, because would you want to, for example, sawdust days? With all the activity, would you want dogs roaming around sawdust days? I mean, so do you say, okay.
I don't want dogs in Menominee Park.
Okay, and we don't want geese there either,
Yeah.
and we can't seem to get rid of the geese. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But so maybe the best way to look at it is, or do like the county did at the county park. They implemented a dog park area.
Right.
Could we designate a park to be that park
Okay.
to let dogs? If we're going to allow dogs in the city, we probably should have a recreational place. We have recreational places to play softball and play football and soccer, and we have all the other recreational opportunities. Well, if a dog lover's recreation is walking their dog, they should be able to do that in a park setting also.
But not all parks. is what
Not
you're
all
saying.
parks. I don't believe that
Okay.
all the parks. I wouldn't think South Park would be a great location, but maybe one of the other parks would be a good location, and maybe even fence it in, and then provide, have an ordinance that the dog owner is responsible for cleaning up after their dog, even in the dog park areas. So that because if you put it in a residential area, you could have some issues with the smell of the from the dogs and stuff like that, and the barking and things. So I think there is no one answer fits all in this situation.
Okay. What do you see, other than budgetary issues, of course, what do you see, Steve, as some of the more pressing issues that the council is facing, not just short-term, but maybe long-term too?
Well, I think one of the big issues is water, the riverfront development. They have spent a lot of money, a lot of infrastructure money, TIF districts and things. I think they need to continue to look for that improvement. Continue to research and try to find a good mix. Because it's tied into really the city of downtown even now. As the walkway is starting to be developed now, and that's starting this coming year, people are going to be down there walking more, exercising more, and so we need to continue to work on that development. I think that's important. I think our streets our streets in Oshkosh. I mean, we have great streets and we have terrible streets.
Yeah.
But yet, I think not every street in Oshkosh needs to be curb, gutter, and concrete.
That was your comment in the Northwestern answer, which I have. Can I just follow up on that?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
You said, quote, it's time to reevaluate street and movement. Why don't you expand that a little bit?
Well, I live on the northeast side of Oshkosh, for
Okay.
example, and I live on a street that's cut off now by the railroad tracks.
Okay.
Okay. We don't have the kind of traffic that I believe we need to have curb, concrete, and gutters on the
Okay.
street. But yet it's all potholes.
Right.
So could we not do an asphalt layover and do more of those secondary or do some traffic counts and find out what is the traffic. Obviously, our major infrastructure streets, your major thoroughfare streets coming into the city, South Park, Oregon, Oshkosh Ave, Jackson, those need, the volume of traffic is there and the weight, and especially if they're a truck route. But I think in our subdivisions, in our neighborhoods, they don't all need to be there. And we could do a better job, because I think as you drive around Oshkosh, it's the secondary and the lesser used streets that are in the worst shape.
I live on East Parkway.
Okay.
This summer they pave from Hazel to Bowen. So I'm hoping, they're going to go further west. So I wrote Dave Patek, 214 is when they're going to do the route. I'll be gone by then. I mean,
Right.
this is a bad street. It's heavily used.
Yep.
The Boys and Girls Club, one of the entrances to the park. But I got to wait another 4 years to get the rest of the street
Well,
done.
in that evaluation process, they rate the streets from
Right.
like a 0 to 5.
Right.
But at the same time, I think they need to rate them on volume of traffic.
Yeah.
And then look at those issues. Like this year, I think they have like $38 million budgeted for street improvement and stormwater, tearing up laterals and all that. And yet they're only doing 5 miles of roads.
Yeah.
Now, if we took that same dollar amount and said, okay, we're going to do our major roads that need them, but we can now do another 4 miles or 5 miles of secondary streets with a asphalt layover. I don't know. I know that there's a lot of, a year ago after the flooding and all that, they looked at how old the sanitary sewer system is in the city, and a lot of it is, back from the Depression era. So, I'm sure even on our side of town, your sewers are probably in need of repair. But so you repair them, does that mean you got to put concrete over the top of them?
So you'd have blacktop with curb and gutter is what you're thinking?
We
or
could.
Or not even curb
Or
and
not
gutter.
even curb and gutter. I mean, now, maybe, but at the same time, I think, like they did with the Melvin Street city, I think we need to have neighborhood watch meetings in that sense. Or, the people that are paying for the project should have some input on the project.
Sure.
In that, you look under what the role of the council is. It is to hold meetings that are to the interest of the citizens of Oshkosh. Streets would, you pay for it, it's going to go in your tax rolls.
bet.
And I also don't know that, why should I or you, if you want your street improved, have to go up and down your street and have everybody sign a petition that says, I want my street done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a lot of renters who are not going to sign that sheet.
Well, sure.
Well, I'm not even sure that they can, but what it ends up doing is
I mean,
it pits
the
property
owners of the rental.
against each
It
other.
pit,
they
it
don't wanna
pits
do
property
that.
owners
Right.
against
You're
each
right.
other.
And that's one of the things that I don't
Yeah.
think we want to get into. And so if there's a better way, and at the same time, if the city, again, we're trusting Mr. Patek and our other people that this is in the best interest of the city, they should let the citizens hear that, and then they can make that decision that, okay, you're right, we'll go ahead with it.
Could we shift to another neighborhood issue?
Oh, sure. yeah,
You
go ahead.
mentioned Melvin Street, and so I'm thinking, retention ponds, where do they go? Where don't they go? Every time there's a suggestion to put it in a neighborhood, first it was West Haven Golf Area, now more recently it's Melvin Street, which you just brought. No one wants retention ponds in their neighborhood, obviously. But we got to put them somewhere. then we have the eminent domain case with the farmers out on James
Yeah.
Road. Where are you at on all this?
Well, I look at it as the engineers need to explain themselves
Okay.
to the affected people, and why is this in the best interest. Now, I know what the James Road, the 91 James Road thing is. The owners out there feel like it's a city problem that the city created with, West Haven and all.
They don't
those
want to give
things.
up their
They
farmland
don't want
to
to give up
solve
their
the city
farmland.
problem.
Nobody wants it in their backyard.
Right.
But at the same time, if that is the best option, and it's explained to the people that this is the best option, then I think we're having that open government piece.
Yeah.
We're out there explaining why we're doing it, not just come in here and say we're going to do it.
Right.
And like it or not, we're going to do our eminent domain. And I'm a big public-private partnership kind of person, and I think we need to be open to them, explain. The council should be advised ahead of time that this is what we're recommending and why we're recommending, and then that gets taken back out in a timely fashion to the people that are affected by it.
The frustration that I see, I certainly feel it, and I see it and hear it from other people, is, the city says, okay, well, first they said West Haven was the best option. That was the best option. Now we're hearing that this other place might be the best option. And I also understand that there's different ponds going in a lot of different
I think
places
it's
in the
12 or
city.
14
It's
projects.
not just one. And I think that that's a misconception that some people have, But we do keep hearing that, well, this is the best place for this, and this is the best place for this. It's kind of like the school district, where this is the best plan on what we should close and what we should keep open and where we should build. And then when too many people complain, well, then all of a sudden there's another best option. And I think that's where some of the lack of trust is coming from on the part of citizens toward their bodies of government. What would you do or try to do if you were on the council, because you're only one vote? But how can we instill more trust in our bodies of government, and where do we begin with that?
Well, I think that's a good point. To me, I think the body of trust first comes from the council has to be committed to the project. If in the end, before it even kind of gets to open discussion, I think there has to be a little bit of a decision on the council, because if the council's divided, then they're going to be divided out in the community. Okay, and you're never going to please everybody. A city of 62,000, and then if you incorporate the townships that get brought in, especially in the stormwater issue, you're never going to make everybody happy. But if the council and the city is committed that this is in the best interest, you're going to have that resistance and that opposition at times, but then that's when you're just going to have to kind of say, it's not an easy decision, and this is what we're going to go ahead and go forward with. Because I've seen over the years, not just the current council, but over the years as I've lived in Oshkosh and seen a lot of different councils, it seems like they make a decision, and then a year or two, a couple new council members come on, and now they're rehashing stuff that they already voted on and approved, and now they want to change it. And I don't think you should do that. That's where I think the lack of trust has come in over the years, because the council isn't decisive enough. They make the decision and they backtrack.
Of course, it's new people, so
Yeah.
I don't know how you're
Yeah.
ever going to get around that.
Well,
because
I think that
different
there's-
people have different
And
ideas.
I don't think you're ever going to get a 7-0 vote on
No,
the
you
matter-
probably
matters up
won't,
there either.
because there could be council members who just don't agree in this type of process, or in having basins and that type of thing. But at the same time, we have to remember something. We live basically next to nothing but water.
Yeah.
You're going to have stormwater and water issues no matter what, and it's just where we live.
Do you think, Steve, that we have a council right now that is kind of in a mindset of micromanaging the city manager and city departments and department heads?
Yes, they do. I really do believe that. We do. Again, maybe under prior administration and the issues, I mean, they fired a bunch of people last year, at the end of last year. Maybe they felt at that time they had to be a little more hands-on. But with hiring these new people coming in, new parks directors just started. We're going to be, I think I read online, they're going to be interviewing for the planning person to replace Sue, and that these people coming in can't do their job if they're not allowed to do their job. And if the city manager isn't allowed to do his job, he's the administrator. We're going back to that policy, that kind of the board of directors, we're to give that direction and give that sense of you've asked for input, we're giving you input, now implement it. And if all of a sudden we turn around and say, well, you shouldn't have maybe done that, but we already gave you the authority to do that, we can't get any trust from our citizens. They're gonna look at the council as a bunch of, you said this, now you're doing this, and I think that's where the trust factor comes in.
How do you explain the 5-2 vote to let O'Brien's keep their liquor license when the chief of police comes in with 100 infractions over, I think, a 6-month period, and he only gets 2 votes to pull their license? If you can't pull your license for that, what can you pull your license for?
Well, I'd have to be on my law enforcement side of that, which I'm retired now, but I would say that they should have. But I think part of the problem was there wasn't a formal process in place, and I think that's what needs to be done.
Okay.
I think now that's going to happen. The documentation piece. You watch, say, City of Green Bay, and we get Green Bay news stations all the time.
Sure.
So you kind of, it's easy to follow. They have a process, and they have step 1, and step 2, and step 3, and when those all happen, then the license is gone. And I don't think we quite had that procedure in place. I think the chief had legitimate concerns and a good reason to bring it to the council when that license came up. And if I would have been on the council, I would have voted in favor.
What more do you need in 100 infractions?
Well, I don't know what all the infractions
I don't
were,
either.
but I think any time you have underage consumption, and I know they had a violation of liquor in the wrong bottles or
cheap
something.
liquor and more,
saying it was a different one. To me, that would have been right there because
all right.
that's misleading the community.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I go in and ask for a certain brand of liquor and it's something else, and that's just misleading.
Okay. Let me take a look here. One of the big things, of course, is TIFs. And one of the things that's going to be coming before a council relatively soon is the TIF for Oshkosh Corp. And I guess, where do you stand on that TIF and why?
Well, first off, TIFs are probably the best thing the city has going for them, I guess, to develop economic development in the city of Oshkosh. And we need to continue economic development. Obviously, Oshkosh Truck is our major company in the city, and there's so many businesses that are related to truck that I would support that 100% because we need good economic jobs in the Oshkosh area. Because if people have good jobs, they're going to live in Oshkosh, they're going to spend money in Oshkosh, they're going to continue to increase our tax base, they're going to be going to our schools and all those things. So and it's also competitive. As Oshkosh Truck has said, other corporations that they're bidding against are getting all this help. Well, we need to step up to the plate too. And I think TIFs are our best tool as a government to assist business and economic development and growth in this Oshkosh area.
Okay. Couple of things. I can't let this go because, first of all, there are state laws in place that govern when you can and can't give
Correct.
a TIF. And how would you, as a council member, for example, get around those particular criteria that are in place, such as blighted land, such as the but-for test, because I truly believe that this development would happen regardless of whether or not they get the $5 million from the city. I mean, they're already getting 30-some million from the state. They stand to make hundreds of millions of dollars. They'd be foolish to forego hundreds of millions of dollars in income because they're not getting $5 million from the city. And then the other part of that is just about TIFs in general, Steve, and that is, should it be the only thing that we're out there offering? I mean, shouldn't we try and find other ways to spur development?
Sure, by all means. And first off, we should not be violating the law just to make it happen. I mean, if it doesn't meet the criteria of a TIF, okay, like you just said, the Brownsfield and all those things, we can't circumvent that as a council. So in that case, but you're right, we need to continue to look outside the box, not just TIFs. One of the things I said, and you mentioned the Northwestern, I think the city of Oshkosh needs a grant coordinator, grant writer.
Yeah.
That can look for those other options, as you mentioned. Are there other grants? Are there federal dollars? I made a statement at the forum the other night. When's the last time Petri or Cole or Feingold brought any money to the Oshkosh, Fox River Valley area? Why are we not lobbying the legislative people to help us? They can have an impact in this thing too. Yes, they're supportive of Oshkosh Truck and the things that they're doing, but yet there's more than truck too. You know, we have 5, 6 industrial parks in the Oshkosh area. We have Champco, we have the industrial development arm. You know, there are other things that we need to do to bring money into the Oshkosh area. But I do think that even though it sounds like $5 million isn't a lot of money, I think the city needs to step up to show truck that you are important. We will step up to the plate when we have to, and we'll help you get what you need to get the project to move forward.
Because there's not even a guarantee that those new employees are going to be living in Oshkosh. They could be living in a township, and
it's true,
know,
and
so.
you're right, and you know, we have, you know, that's another good point. You're talking about townships. I think that's the other part that I think the city needs to do a better job is working with our local townships. I mean, Town of Algoma is a close neighbor. Town of Black Wolf and Town of Oshkosh and the Kaimai, they're all impacted by decisions that we make here in the city of Oshkosh, and we need to work closer and better with all of those townships also.
Yeah, I did. You mentioned the grant coordinator, and I like that idea. That's one of the fresh ideas that you're talking about bringing to the council. How would you envision that? Would you envision that like an independent contractor working with the city? Would it be a part-time or a shared position or a full? What do you envision?
Well, initially, I would look at it as, could we co-op it? Could we be, you know, again, when you add an employee, you know, you add salary and benefits and all those things, so that's an added expense. Would it be maybe better to have a contract with someone to be that grant coordinator with, these are the duties and responsibilities that we want you to bring to the table, okay? That might be a way to look at it. Or could we work with a private entity, another corporation, another company that has someone that it's a 50% time position.
Those are all options that are tried at different places.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll go back again to my roots, the sheriff's office. 2 years ago, Sheriff Brooks brought on, when we had a change in our accountant or business manager position, he made that a 50% time grant writer, grant coordinator. And as you've seen, we brought in more grants into the county, the sheriff's office did, and things. So I think there's a benefit to that. Now, specifically, it'd have to be researched. I haven't researched it to what would be in the best interest of the city to have a separate employee designated that's their job, full-time job, or would it be a 50% time? But I do think that there's money out there that could be brought back through the stimulus package, some other things. I know on the city website, if you look under the stimulus package, they had projects ready to go, which is good. But, okay, if they didn't get the money, or there are other options to look at in other avenues.
Okay. We're almost out of time, so why don't you just take about 30 seconds or so, look into camera 3, and tell folks why they should vote for you on Tuesday, February
cameras
16th.
Right there, okay.
Right there.
Right there, thank you.
Waiting for you.
All right. Reason I feel that I think the citizens of Oshkosh should look at me to vote on February 16th is that I can bring common sense, fresh ideas, and look at reducing wasteful spending within the city budget. Not that there is wasteful spending, but are there ways to reduce it? Are we duplicating any services? Can we consolidate services? Can we work better as a public-private partnership to get the projects done and reduce the taxes on our citizens? Because services, taxes, I think most people are comfortable paying taxes for basic services like police, fire, sanitation, those basic services that all communities provide to their citizens.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a very
Good
short
luck to you.
break. When
Nice
we come
meeting you.
back,
Nice meeting
we'll be
you.
joined by John Jorgensen running for
great to see.
judge in Branch 5. We'll be right back.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, I finally have some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing well. We have good days and bad days over here. We try to remember the good ones and get through the bad ones. Mostly we have each other, and that's what keeps us going. And Mom, since you asked, if anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, your son, Michael.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. the Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We were in an emergency situation. We don't have extra. We have a little bit of water and a little bit of food. A meeting place, no.
No.
I don't think we have a first aid kit.
We have tuna fish, we have
Right.
beans, we have canned tomatoes,
True.
you know.
That's true, but that's really not survival food. Tomato paste.
Yeah, well, yeah, right?
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. John Jorgensen, as promised, is here. And before we start chatting with him, we talked about this on last week's show.
We did.
Just want to mention again, Caroline Carver was invited to appear. She was a week late in getting back to us as far as the date that we originally offered, said then that she couldn't do it, and then we offered her a second date, and she never bothered getting back to us at all. So we're done extending the invitations, the time slots are gone, and so that's it. She will not be on, but we're pleased that all the other 4 candidates for Branch 5 have appeared, or are appearing
Going to,
as
right.
as we are right now. So,
Right.
John, thank you very much for being here. We
welcome.
appreciate it.
Yeah, well, let me thank you both of you. I mean, this is a very important election, and it's hard to get our messages out, and
It is.
and expensive to get it out. So these type of programs are just invaluable to the community, for the candidates, and for the public. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And it's free. So
And
there
it's
you go.
free. Yeah.
And there's not those nasty time constraints that
Oh.
that you have with some of the league forms.
Yeah,
So.
we'll try to ask shorter questions.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Great. Good to be here.
Not the essay type questions.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, we always start, and you've been here before
Yeah.
when you've run for office, so we always start by having folks explain, tell a little bit about themselves and why they're running for office.
Sure. Well, let me start off with the easy answer is tell you about myself. I live in Oshkosh with my wife, Jenny. We have 4 children, Matthew, Aaron, Megan, Ryan. I've been living in Oshkosh and working in Oshkosh for the last 16 years. I work in the district attorney's office as a prosecutor, but I'm involved in their community in many ways, not only as a prosecutor, which I do feel is a public service, but also I was involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters, Kiwanis, a judge in teen court, and also I work at the free legal clinic that was started, in fact, by Dave Keck, which I'm sure you talked about earlier. It's a great program. But I'm also a reservist, a soldier for the United States Army, and as a judge advocate general, mobilized for 12 months, where it was one of my greatest professional honors to go help the soldiers before they went off to fight the war. I had helped them with their legal affairs, so family law issues, landlord tenants, creditors, debtors, things like that. So that's a little bit about me. The reason I'm running, first of all, as I said, I've been a prosecutor for 16 years, so I've been in the system. I've been before judges, and first of all, I see the very positive things that a good judge can do to change our community, to change a person, to help families out along the process, along the way. And as a public servant, I feel like it's the next step of my career would be to go to that level. I feel I have the experience for it. One of the most important things a judge does is preside over a jury trial. And I've had well over 100 jury trials where I was the prosecutor. And I think that's almost double the experience of my the next person in this race. And criminal justice, I think, is one of the most important things a judge deals with, because it touches so many people in our community, and obviously that's where my experience is at.
Okay, good. I don't want to dwell on this, and we certainly talked about this when you were here the last time, and I don't remember if you were running for judge at that time or DA. I don't recall.
I never ran for DA. I started to, but
Okay.
then I ran for judge, so it was the judge
all right.
race.
But we've got new people in the community, and some people who have been here a long time with good memories.
Yeah.
So we just want to get this out of the way and then move on to issues from today. You worked under Joe Paulus as his one of his, you were actually his deputy DA, I think, for a number of years. And, you know, of course, he's since been convicted on federal and state charges. He's done 5+ years, I think, still serving time in prison. And you and a lot of folks who worked in that office just had no knowledge of anything of what he was doing. And yet 2 people, one who's running against you, Ed Jelinski, and Tom Chalkoff, just only a few years out of law school and pretty new in the DA's office, they picked up on some of the things that he was doing. He shared with them things he was doing. And I guess my question is, help us understand why he would share something like this with newcomers and people who worked with him for so long had no inkling.
Okay. That's a fair question. It's a question, an answer that literally could take the whole show and into an hour after that.
Well, he's a complex guy. And those were complex issues.
So I'm going to try to answer this because I too don't want to, there's so many important issues in this race. I too don't want to take up this whole half hour with that. So I'm going to.
We don't want you to either.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So let me start off with, it's been a good 5 years, maybe 6 years since this all came out. And it came out in a very political environment. And what I mean by that is, people were running for DA. Paulus was running for DA. Jelinski was running for DA. Prevey, someone else in my office, was running for district attorney. So this whole ugly mess came out in such a political environment that I think things, how should I put this, got sensationalized. I think that it gave a big black eye to the whole legal community, including myself, because I worked there. But, I lost my chain of thought. It became very sensationalized. So let me start off with a couple things, Cheryl, and hopefully this will answer it. When people are taking bribes, they don't announce it to people. They don't tell people they're doing that. In fact, I disagree with you with your comment that you just made that he told Jelinski about those things. You had EJ on the show. I don't even think he says that he was told about these bribes. I'm positive he didn't say that. Because when you take bribes, when a person takes bribes, they don't tell people they're doing that. As a prosecutor, I see it all the time. When people steal from businesses or steal from other individuals, they're not normally writing that down in the file or telling other people. In fact, the very nature of criminal activity is you're hiding it. You're trying to keep it from people. So that's number one. Number two, if someone was working at a bank and the bank president was embezzling money or higher up was embezzling money, you never see the public coming out and saying everyone in that bank knew what was going on. They're all guilty of it. It doesn't happen because I think common sense tells you that the bank president did his best to take the money, to hide it, and use it for his own good. So I guess that's my second argument. That, of course, when someone's committing a crime, their main goal is not only to commit it, but then to hide it. And then I guess my last point is this. There were 3 investigations into this whole ugly affair. The State Bar, Office of Lawyer Regulation, the State Attorney General's Office, and they filed a long report, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, and the federal prosecutors, someone from Washington, I believe, came in, a corruption prosecutor. And all those 3 investigations, after hearing testimony, after looking at hundreds, probably thousands of documents, after talking to, I don't know how many, tens of, maybe hundreds of people. And here we are 6, 7, 8 years later, and it all comes down to the same thing. 2 people were involved in this very horrible scheme and plan, and they're both held accountable. Now, a couple things I'd like to point out. In the state report, they specifically went out of their way to say that there is no evidence that anyone in the office knew what was going on. Number 2, the federal prosecutor went out of his way to say that until Mitch Sherlin wore the wire, they only had a hunch of what was going on. So, So this federal prosecutor who's a professional at corruption fighting talked to all these witnesses, looked at all this evidence, and all they could come up with was a hunch of what was going on until Cheryl eventually wore the wire and sold Paul's out. So I guess I throw that all out for your consideration because it's an impossible thing to you know, just prove a negative, right? So with all that, I would say that what E.J. Jelinski had and what he presented was a tape of Paulus talking horribly, and it was released to the public. What Ann Gallner did was got the first person came forward and talked to her. So, and this is my last point, and then hopefully I'll move on. And I know I'm doing all the talking, but yeah, Ann Gallner is the one that got that first case that got the ball rolling. And they are the only ones that knew about that case that got the ball rolling. And from there, it moved on to different cases.
Okay.
And that, obviously, other people didn't have in the office.
No, that's fair, John. That's totally fair. But some people, and I'm not trying to pin this on you, I'm just saying that some people do brag about crimes that they've committed. And we certainly hear about that all the time. And I think when you're a very vain, cocky, arrogant person, I think you think that you're invincible, and you do have a tendency to maybe be a little bit more boastful about things. And, you know, EJ at least had an inkling that there was, I mean, Paulus must have said something that gave him the inkling, you know, to lead him into the areas that he and Tom and Ann Gallner went to. But anyway, so that's I mean, we understand now why you maintain that you knew nothing about that, and that's fair, and thank you for sharing that, because it is uncomfortable. You know, it's uncomfortable for us to talk about it too. So anyway, so let's move on to issues. Creative alternatives to incarceration. You know, we're seeing more and more of that. You mentioned teen court, drug court, the STOP program, things like that. These are things that if defendants, you know, qualify and their crimes fit the bill, if you will, you know, help to keep them out of jail and yet hopefully rehabilitate them. How do you feel about these programs? Do you think they're working? Do we need more programs like this? And if so, like what?
Sure. I do think these programs are working. You know, the state is in such a horrible budget crisis right now that I think it's incumbent upon us, the public officials, the prosecutors, anyone in the system, to do whatever they can to help rehabilitate the criminals or the people that get into trouble or make a stupid mistake, to divert them from the system so that we can really then deal with the most serious offenders in our system. And that not only includes our office, the district attorney's office dealing with them, but also probation and parole through the Department of Corrections and, of course, incarceration, the prison system. I think they are working. I think I was just in drug court a couple of weeks ago, and it's an excellent program that Judge Walt and Judge Key has started. I think they are so devoted to that program, and they do such a good job, and it is, without a doubt, diverting people that would be in our prison where we were paying as taxpayers $50,000, $60,000 to house them. Instead, they're working very intensely with them through the drug court. You mentioned a couple other ones. Teen court, that's a juvenile diversion program that I'm part of and I volunteer for, where we try to keep the juveniles out of the juvenile justice system so the social workers then can deal again with the people who really need their attention. And it's a great program. We need to keep looking for more. Christian Gossett, and my boss at the DA's office, has started another program, a misdemeanor drug diversion program. Long ago, people convicted of a drug crime, we generally would put them on probation, thinking that they have an AODA issue, they need supervision and counseling. We've learned, because of the diminished resources, that Department of Corrections, they're on a very low part of their totem pole as to what they could provide to them because of money, because of time. So then we backed off and said, then what's the point of even putting them on probation? We just started just giving them fines. Okay, first offense, here's 100, you know, pay $100, move on, don't do it again. Well, we started a program now in the DA's office where we're going to divert these first-time offenders that have these drug issues, and and part of this diversion program is they'll plead guilty to the charge. They'll agree to go through whatever AODA counseling, drug counseling, follow through, and if they don't get any other law violations for whatever period, 6 months, 12 months, then the case will be dismissed. So I think that is going to have a positive impact on some people. I mean, we're not blind to think it's going to also fix everybody, but there will be some people they will take hold of, and if it does, that's a success. I'm right now on a committee where we're looking for one other diversionary program for veterans. As I indicated, I'm a reservist myself, so this is an issue close to my heart. But we're working on a veterans court where, again, if someone's returning from war, has issues because of their service to the country, we're looking at another diversionary program where, again, we can get them the services they need, maybe keep them out of criminal court, or at least minimally in criminal court, and get them the services that, that they require so that they don't come back to the system. The VA has a lot of money and has a lot of services for these soldiers, and that, I think, was one of the biggest goals of this Veterans Court, is to hook them up with these services. And whether it's alcohol, because whether they're abusing alcohol or drugs because of what they experienced overseas, or post-traumatic stress syndrome, the VA has some great services to assist them. So that's going to be our goal, is to get that message out to law enforcement, to our office, to the judges, and get this program up and running.
Okay.
What is your response to former U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor's proposal to appoint judges under a merit system rather than to elect them?
So obviously right now that's what they do in the federal system. So she's referring to state...
She's going around now. She belongs to an organization, and let's take your position. Wouldn't it be better to have you appointed through a select committee that was appointed to base your qualifications on merit rather than to go out to voters who know very little about the judgeship?
Right. Well, first of all, this is the first I've heard of it, so that's an interesting program.
Okay.
You know, there's pros and cons to everything, and I'm thinking them through as you discuss it. The pros to the system that we have right now is where a judge is elected, and every 6 years has to go before the voters, is that you're responsible and accountable for what you do in court, how you do your scheduling, how you hold people accountable, whether you show up for court and hold appropriate hearings.
Sure.
So there's definitely accountability every 6 years, and if there's major issues, then those could be presented to the voters and let them decide whether that elected judge is doing a good job.
Would you concede, however, that the average voter has no way really to assess the merits of you and the other 4 candidates that are running for this judgeship?
I would concede that it is difficult to get our message out, but maybe a compromise. Maybe what we should do is keep up with educating the voters through programs like this, through the state bar, and I know they do this in federal court appointments. They do their own analysis of the judicial candidates and say whether they're qualified or not. Maybe the local bar could do the same to get the information out. Newspapers do that when they have editorial interviews.
Don't you think the only way the voter is going to know what you're doing is to put a camera in the courtroom?
I would say not the only way, but it would be a useful way.
Because we see the Common Council, we see school board, we see the Winnebago. But the court, you shut your door, and unless you're a party, you know very little about the process.
Right.
And we have to vote on that. And what do we vote on?
Right.
Huh?
You're right. I mean, it's a difficult issue. Number one, of course, the courthouse is open, so
I know that.
Yeah. So if people were interested, they could come and see what is going on.
Okay.
But I think we do an adequate job of talking about the issues in these type of campaigns. Again, in forums like this, where we can discuss certain ideas, and you know, we've had contested judges race in this county numerous times in the last 6, 12 years, where we talked about issues and philosophies. I mean, I talked about the pros and the cons. You know, the con is there's a lot of politics in those type of appointments as well. And I know you can say, well, we'll have this bipartisan committee. Well, I don't know. We all know the politics behind even bipartisan committees. It's
now the justice's other counter-argument or argument for appointment is that your contributors are going to be the people that are going to appear before you. They're going to be lawyers.
Right.
And they're buying influence.
That is one contention. Obviously, the other is that it's their First Amendment right, freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and they're obviously. I mean, you would hope it'd be done for pure purposes, which is they find the candidate that they think would do the best job, speak out for them, support them, and then, like you say, probably support them financially. You know, and you know, it's a risk. You know, if you believe that theory that you're buying influence, then lawyers would. It's a gamble. What judge are you going to support? And I don't know if lawyers would put their necks out on the line like that. But
Okay. One more question.
Sure.
A couple questions on the Constitution.
yes,
Both the federal and Wisconsin state constitution give citizens the right to bear arms. Pretty strong, huh? Do you think health care ought to be a constitutional right?
wow, very good question. And I'm going to take the easy way out, which is, as a judge, you have to be careful on what opinions you give. And I'm sure you've gotten this answer, I'm assuming by other candidates, which is I can't, it's funny, and you know this, and I'm telling your viewers, and when you run for legislature, you can say, I'm for this, I'm for that, I'm not for this, I'm not for that. As a judge, you can't take these stands because what if that issue comes before me or somebody else? I can't be on the record saying I strongly support this issue, that issue, because what if that issue comes before me and now I'm going to be, the lawyer is going to say, well, Judge Jorgensen, you already opined that you don't support this Constitution, so how can you fairly sit there and make a decision?
Okay, I'm going to be more specific.
Okay.
Eighth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
Yes.
Excessive bail should not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted.
Right.
Is capital, is death penalty in violation of the Eighth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution?
All right, I will say this, and I'm because I want to give you an answer.
Yeah.
And I will support the law, whatever it is.
Right. I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's hard to.
Right.
Undue punishment would seem to me would be the
Right.
death penalty.
I will support the law, whatever it is. My personal belief is that we are not a perfect system. There is one only perfect justice system, and that's probably after we're all off this earth. And unless we have a perfect system, I guess it would trouble me to take another person's life.
Okay. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, I want to shift to a budget type question. And it will affect you either way, I think, whether you're elected judge or whether you stay in the DA's office. We're taping this on January 28th, and we just read today, at least I did, where judges in counties across the state are waiting for something from the state to say whether or not they have to lay people off. We don't know yet, of course, how this is going to affect Winnebago County DA's office. But if they do have to lay off even just one district attorney, obviously that's going to increase the caseload for the other DAs. Does that do anything to further back up the court cases in your courtroom, for example, or does that just mean extra work for the DA?
It probably means extra work for the DA and possibly less work for the judicial system. But I don't know if that's a good thing. I think several DAs throughout the state, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of Christian because I'm not sure if he's made any public statements, but I know several district attorneys throughout the state has said if this happened, first of all, I'd like to start off with the fact that the criminal justice system, district attorney's office, is a very burdened system right now and has been for years and years. And there have not been any new relief with new assistant DA positions.
Right.
And crime, and the legislature keeps creating more crimes for us to prosecute and to enforce. So starting with that, we're already a burdened system. If we lose new positions, it will continue to be more burdened. And I know some district attorneys in other counties have said, okay, if the legislature does that, then so that we can focus on the most serious of criminals and crimes, we're not going to prosecute certain types of cases. And so they've been saying that we're not going to prosecute misdemeanor drug offenses. We're not going to handle disorderly conducts, which I think is horrible. I mean, I don't blame them, but I'm saying that's a horrible message to send to our community. And it's horrible because if a lot of these people, if we get ahead early, maybe we can stop them from being the more serious offenders that I was just talking about.
Right.
So if people have these drug or alcohol issues, if we can get them help early, then that's not going to progress to these more serious crimes.
Okay.
So I think if that would happen, it may lighten the load of the judges, may in the short term, but in the long term, maybe it'll increase the load because we're not dealing with them early enough in the system.
Well, that's a good thought.
Yeah,
I
it really
hadn't really
is.
thought about
Yeah.
that. But the one
And the
thing
cuts are probably coming.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, and the one thing that I did think about, though, is it might slow down a person's constitutional right to a speedy due process. Because if you've got DAs that are so overworked, you know, they can only, I mean, I've seen the stack of cases that you guys bring into a courtroom.
Right.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Right.
And you add a few more to that,
Sure.
or even, you know, I don't know how many more it would add, but
Take a few people off.
yeah, I mean, it would, I think, slow down the process for defendants.
And the thing that sometimes people forget, Cheryl, is when you see those files, I'm sure you've seen us carrying a recorder in a box.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to remember
You need a wagon, John.
We do have a wagon. We have a cart that we got to go across the parking lot with. But those files generally, every one of them, most of them, represent a victim. Whether it was a violent crime or property crime, burglary, it represents a victim who was harmed. And you see us going over there in such huge volumes, and sometimes I feel like we don't do justice for these victims when we just deal with them like an assembly line.
Sure.
We try our best. I think we do, but boy, it's scary, the amount of cases that we deal with, and it's always scary that something's going to slip through the cracks.
Yeah. We're running out of time, and I want to touch on this real quickly. You know, we've got judges that are viewed by some in the public as lenient. We've got some that are viewed as more stringent and you know, letter of the law type judges. Where do you kind of fall, John? Who would your judicial philosophies more follow? And I realize it would depend on the case.
Right,
but,
right.
You know,
I was thinking about something along that question like this, and I guess I would like to stay away from labels and just tell you this, that I have found that I would be very thoughtful, and I would be looking for any ways possible to keep them out of the system, the defendants. And each case is their individual case, and I'd give everyone their due process. I think everyone deserves to be heard in court. I'd be respectful to the participants and respectful to the defendants, and do whatever we can to make sure that they don't come back in the system. But there does become a time where everything has been tried with the diversionary programs, with the probation, and some county jail time, where all of a sudden they are a menace to the community and they are harming individuals and they're in a spiral out of control. There's a study, I think it was a Harvard study, talked about people with addiction, and that's mostly what we deal with in the criminal justice system, people with addictions. And it says that they have to hit rock bottom before they can make any serious changes in their lives. And I seriously feel that one of the judge's role is to try to recognize when they're there or help them get to that rock bottom place so that they can be wiped clean and start a new life with reprogramming through counseling, AODA, through the guidance of probation and parole. And so, I will be looking for those cases where, I think that this person needs to hit rock bottom before they can start seeing the sky again and making some changes.
Okay, very, very quickly. Look into camera 3, take about 15 seconds and just say, why people should vote for you on February 16th, right there.
Right. I'm a firm believer in public service, and I've done that all my life through United States Army Reserves as a volunteer in teen court, and I'm very concerned about this community and to make it a better place. And I think I've demonstrated that throughout my career. I know I can make a difference on the bench, a difference for the better. I have the compassion, fairness, and firmness to sit in judgment, and I also have the experience. So I do ask for your vote on February 16th.
All right, very good.
Thanks
much.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks again. Just
Thank
sit
you.
tight.
Just wait.
And that's going to do it for us. Thanks to everybody, you at home, the crew, everyone involved, and our guests as well. So we'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got All Right on Oshkosh.